The queen was banished from the kingdom because she poisoned the king. Once upon a time, in the peaceful and prosperous kingdom of Eldoria, ruled a just and beloved king named King Roland. King Roland had two queens. His first wife, Queen Elara, had been with him for many years. She was known throughout the kingdom of her extraordinary beauty, but she had a cold, distant nature. Elara rarely left her chamber and kept her life distant within the palace wall. Shrouded in mystery, the second queen, Queen Serena, came into the king's life. Later, Serena was the opposite of Elara, kind, gentle, and loved by the people. She visited villages, cared for the sick, and was often seen among the common folk. Despite their difference, the royal family was seemingly happy. King Roland loved both of his queens in his own way, but deep in his heart, it was Serena's kindness and warmth that brought him the most joy. Princess Livia, the king's only daughter, from his second marriage, was a curious and intelligent young girl. Though she was young, Livia was known for her sharp mind and sense of justice. She spent her day learning from the royal scholars and her nights reading in the vast palace library. She adored her father, and King Roland was her hero, a figure of strength and wisdom. One bright autumn morning, King Roland sat down to breakfast with his family. The sun streamed through the tall window of the great dining hall, casting golden light on the banquet table. But something was amiss. The king, usually full of life and energy, appeared pale and sluggish. He could hardly eat and winced at even the slightest movement. By the end of the day, the king was bedridden, too weak to rise. The royal healer rushed to his side. They brought him potions, remedies, and tonic from all corners of the kingdom, but nothing seemed to work. As the day passed, the king grew worse. His once robust figure became frail, and his deep voice became a faint whisper. Whisper of worry spread through the palace and out into the streets of Eldoria. The people feared for their king, for without him, who would lead them? The council convinced, but even they could not make sense of the mysterious illness. It was then that rumor began to circulate. Some believed that the king had been poisoned. A dark shadow fell over the palace, and suspicion ran rampant. One afternoon, while the royal council was gathered in the grand hall to discuss the king's worsening condition, a court advisor raised a troubling question. There had been talks among the palace staff. The advisor said gravely, "Whispers of foul play. It is said that someone close to the king may have poisoned him." The room fell silent. Eyes darted between the members of the royal family, lingering on Queen Serena, the second wife. She sat quietly, her hand folded in her lap, her eyes filled with concern for her husband, but that concern was misread as guilt. "It is strange," another council member added, "that the king fell ill so soon after Queen Serena became more involved in his affair. Perhaps she seeks more power to control the throne." The accusation hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud. Queen Serena's heart sank. She loved King Roland dearly, but the council had already begun to believe the worst. "She must be responsible," a guard whispered. No one else had such close access to the king. Queen Serena tried to defend herself. "I will never harm him," she cried. "I love him more than anything." But the council member swayed. by the gossip and rumors, grew more suspicious. The idea that the gentle Queen Serena might have poisoned the king to gain control of the kingdom spread through the palace like wildfire. As the tension in the palace rose, Princess Livia could not sit idly by while her beloved father withered away. She could see the toll the accusations were taking on Queen Serena, and deep in her heart, Livia knew that her stepmother could not be responsible. Livia had always been sharp and observant. She had learned to listen carefully, to notice small details, and now her mind raced with question. If Queen Serena wasn't responsible, who could be? Late one night, unable to sleep, Livia slipped out of her chamber and wandered the palace hall. She paused outside her father's room, where the royal healers tended to him. Through a crack in the door, she saw Queen Serena sitting by the king's bedside, holding his hand, tears rolling down her cheek. "She's innocent," Livia whispered to herself. "I know it." Determined to uncover the truth, Livia decided she would investigate on her own. She would watch, listen, and follow the clue, no matter where they led. Little did she know that the truth would take her deeper into the palace secret than she ever imagined. For the next several days, Livia moved about the palace quietly, her eyes and ears open to every conversation, every strange occurrence. She spoke to the kitchen staff, asking about the king's meal and drink, but no one seemed to notice anything unusual. Everyone loved the king. After all, why would anyone want to harm him? Then one evening, as the sun was setting, Livia noticed something peculiar. She had been sitting in the palace garden, trying to piece together what she had learned, when she saw Queen Elara's maid, a nervous-looking woman named Maris, hurrying through the side gate that led into the royal kitchen. Maris was carrying a small onyx hidden in the fold of her apron. Livia's heart began to race. She had never seen Maris act suspiciously before, and something about the way she moved made Livia curious. Silently, she followed Maris through the kitchen and into a dimly lit hallway. The maid glanced around, as if to make sure no one was watching, then slipped into a small room near the back of the palace. The room was where the king's evening tea was being prepared. Livia's instinct kicked in. She waited for a moment, then crept to the door and peered through the crack. What she saw made her gasp. Maris was carefully pouring a small amount of the liquid from the vial into the king's tea, her hand trembling. "What are you doing?" Livia demanded. Stepping into the room, Maris jumped, nearly dropping the cup. She looked terrified, her face pale. I didn't mean to," Maris stammered. "I was just following orders." "Whose orders?" Livia asked, though she already had a sinking suspicion. "Queen Elara," Maris whispered. "She told me to slip this into the king's tea every night, just a little, so no one would notice. She said it would make him weak, make him heal." Livia's mind spun. Queen Elara? Her father's first wife? It couldn't be, but then the pieces began to fall into places. Elara, who had grown distant from the king. Elara, who never showed concern for his illness. Elara, who had much to gain if the king passed and left the throne empty. Livia's heart hardened with determination. She had to stop this, and she had to prove Queen Serena's innocence before it was too late. Livia knew that simply accusing Queen Elara wouldn't be enough. She needed proof, something that would convince the council and the kingdom of the queen's plan. So she devised a plan. The next day, Livia asked the royal healer to prepare a special tonic for the king. one that would make it seem as though his condition had worsened. They agreed, and word spread quickly that the king's health was failing rapidly. The palace was thrown into chaos, and Livia watched as Queen Elara seemed to grow more confident, more assured that her plan was succeeding. That night, Livia hid the shadow near the king's chamber, waiting for Maris to make her move. As expected, the maid appeared carrying the tainted tea, but this time Livia was not alone. This royal guard, alerted by the princess, were ready. As Maris poured the poison into the cup, Livia stepped forward with the guard. "Stop," she cried. "We know the truth." Maris trembling dropped the cup, and the guard seized her. She confessed everything, how Queen Elara had plotted to poison the king and frame Queen Serena for the crime. Please follow for part 2.